We've got Superman, Spider-Man #1 that came out this week. If you'll remember last year, we had the Batman Deadpool crossovers. Both Marvel and DC each printed a #1 with two different creative teams. This one is DC side of it, and next month we'll get Spider-Man, Superman #1 from Marvel in April. So this one has, just like the others, it has a main story and then it has a bunch of backups. But what's different about this is all the backups are Superman, Spider-Man related, so it's Superman and Spider-Man characters. To where with Batman, Deadpool is just a bunch of random backups. It didn't really have any correlation to where it's like, oh, it's characters from the Bat family or characters from, that are related to Deadpool. Here it's purely Spider-Man, Superman characters. So I found that interesting. And the main story from Mark Waid and Jorge Jimenez is really good. I liked it a lot. Now, before I go any further, I just want to say spoilers if you haven't read it. I'd recommend it. I'd say the main story is pretty good. The backups, some are good, but mostly I'd say mid. I'd say the backups kind of suffer from just not having enough space to really flesh anything out. It kind of feels like they get started and then they end. And there's not much to most of the backups. There are some good ones, but most of them suffer from that. It's like, man, if you had taken one or two backups out, maybe the others could have fleshed out more and actually had a story to tell and been a little better. But overall, I'd say this issue is pretty good, and I liked it. And I hope Marvel does a good job with their end next month. So the issue opens up with Doc Ock getting mad that people forget about how great he is as a man of science. He asks, like, who's the best at this? Who's the best at that? And it's just like, oh, all these other scientific minds of the DC and Marvel universe. Also, I gotta say, something that I like that they've done for these crossovers now, because in the first crossover from Zeb Wells, they tried to sort of explain why Deadpool was over in the DC universe, but since then, they've just been like, this is just from DC Marvel universe that exists. There's just some other world out there where DC and Marvel are one and exists, and we're not going to explain anything. It's like, I like that. I like that. So they have a history together. Everyone knows each other. It's like, all right, it's good. We're not wasting any time being like, some portal opened or we did something like that. Here's now. It's like, now it's just, there's a world that exists. We're not wasting any time explaining it. I thought that was good. Anyways, that when Doc Ock's complaining, he then gets Brainiac reach out to him, and Brainiac's like, hey, I got something for you. And then we go to we see Clark and Peter are buddies, and Clark's like, you know what, I'll give you a ride. New York City's not too far from Metropolis, so he gives them a ride, and they go and they investigate something that happened at Star Labs. There's this new thing that is that's the fast neutrons they're experimenting with, and a lot of them use these different ways to do these fast neutrons, but this one that was stolen because someone broke in and stole it was using kryptonite. And they're like, oh no. So Superman and Spider-Man gotta go and investigate. And of course, we get a beautiful splash page from Jorge Jimenez of Superman and Spider-Man going through the city, and it looks incredible. Jorge Jimenez is one of the best in the game right now, and he's awesome. We see that the reason that Doc Ock and Brainiac are teaming up is because Brainiac, on one of his escapades, picked up an STD, essentially. Now he got like some virus, and now he's got to give it out, so he needs this fast neutron thing to be able to give it to humans, because he's like, this is how I need to expunge this, so he needs Doc Ock to help him with that. So they get that. That's the excuse for them two to team up. Is it the best excuse? Not really. It feels like Brainiac could probably do this by himself, but it's fun. And so they start doing that, and that obviously affects Superman, because now there's like kryptonite in the air. There's kryptonite signals in the air, so it's causing all kinds of problems, and we get to see Superman, Spider-Man saving people. It's nice. It's good, fun stuff. It's Mark Waid does a good job here. I'm not always the biggest fan of Mark Waid. Like, I'm not a big Mark Waid hater or anything. I just generally think a lot of his stuff that people really love is kind of overrated, and I generally find him just to be mid for the most part. Most of Mark Waid's stuff, I'm like, it's fine. But this was actually pretty fun, and I liked it. But they're saving a bunch of people, and then we see them go to the sky to take on Brainiac and Doc Ock. And of course, they switch villains. So Superman's fighting Doc Ock, but he's got these like synthetic kryptonite arms, and Spider-Man's taking on Brainiac. And it's a fun little fight. You get the quips back and forth. I like that that in it, Doc Ock's, complaining about how no one ever recognizes his genius or how great he is. And Clark's, Superman is like, but Clark Kent wrote that an article years ago called you brilliant, another Einstein. And Doc Ock's like, you remember that? And I like that a little bit. But also what I like about it is it doesn't stop Superman from still fighting him, because I do get annoyed with a lot of modern comics where it's like everyone is just, no, we got to be better than throwing down, than fisticuffs. It's like, it's superhero comics. Big part of the reason we come here to see fisticuffs. When you have Jorge Jimenez, you want to see some stuff going down. You don't want to see just two dudes talking and be like, you're better than this, don't do this. It's like, from time to time, that's interesting. But I feel like modern comics do that too much. But no, it doesn't stop it. He still puts a whooping on Doc Ock, and then he's got to try to stop what the ship from falling down into the city. And also during it, Spider-Man gets pinned and he's out of web fluid because he needs to pull this lever so to stop the signal of kryptonite going out, so Superman will have the strength to stop the ship from falling and crushing the city. And we get a nice little thing where Superman's like, I believe in you to Spider-Man. It's cool seeing Superman inspiring Spider-Man. And Spider-Man gets up and he does it. Of course, it all looks amazing because it's Jorge Jimenez. And they do it. And it's pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun story. And then we see that Peter turns in his pictures to the Daily Planet, and Perry White pays much better than J. Jonah Jameson. And Clark talks to Peter about that. He's like, why do you send your pictures to JJ when, he's like terrible and he constantly lies about Spider-Man? And Peter's like, 2 points. One is it only hurts me, so that's fine. He's like, the other thing is JJ is paying to send Spider-Man to college, so suck it. I was like, oh, that was nice. That was a fun little story. And that's the main story. Now we get into the backup. So the backup stories, we get Lois Lane and Mary Jane from Tom King and Jim Lee. We get Superboy Prime and the Amazing Spider-Man from Christopher Priest and Daniel Sampere. It's Superboy and Spider-Man 2099 from Sean Gordon Murphy and Simon Gouge. We get Jimmy Olsen and Carnage from Matt Fraction and Steve Lieber. If you'll remember, they did that Jimmy Olsen maxi series years ago. You get Jonathan Kent and Ben Parker from Jeff Lemire and Rafa Sandoval. You get the Daily Planet and Daily Bugle from Greg Rucka and Nicola Scott. And you get Power Girl and the Punisher from Gail Simone and Beline Ortega, which is an interesting pairing, but I actually ended up liking it. So I'll quickly go through these. The Lois Lane Mary Jane one looks good because it's Jim Lee, so it's cool seeing Jim Lee draw Spider-Man and Superman together. They're just stopping something on a bridge, and Lois and Mary Jane are running around, and they're like having a conversation. They're like talking about how they gotta save the day, and then they get Gambit involved so he can take out the Sentinel. It looks great. The dialogue is horrible. Tom King, reading this, it's like, has Tom King ever heard or seen two human beings interact before? Because no one talks like this. The way they're talking, it is terrible. It's awful. But at least MJ likes Peter in this, so that's cool because you won't get that in a Marvel comic, but at least you get that here. But the dialogue's horrible. So this wasn't too great, looked nice, but wasn't my cup of tea. Pages, which is the Superboy Prime and the Amazing Spider-Man story from Christopher Priest and Daniel Sampere. Again, looks great because Daniel Sampere, great artist. And it's interesting. You see Superboy Prime and why he's stuck, and like how Spider-Man's how it's Black Suit Spider-Man at this time, because this was back when I believe it takes place during the era, or the Spider-Man he grabs, I should say, is when Christopher Priest is like the editor on Spider-Man, or like the group editor on Spider-Man, something, I believe. Anyways, it's during that era, so he grabs him and he needs Spider-Man because his spider sense can help him navigate to get him to a different world, because he sees, when Superboy Prime breaks reality, when he punches reality, he then has a hard time of navigating after that, and so that's why he needs Spider-Man 4. So it's an interesting story. It's all right. I liked it, but I wouldn't say it's great or anything. It's one of probably the better stories of the backups, but it's not my favorite or anything. But again, it does look good, and it was enjoyable, and I like Superboy Prime a lot, so that was cool to see. Then we get Superboy and Spider-Man 2099. This is one of those ones where Sean Gordon Murphy, it looks incredible. Of course, he's a great artist. Batman Beyond shows up in this, but it was way too short. Nothing happens. This was kind of pointless. It's like, man, we should have cut out one of these other stories to let this expand, or cut this story out because there's nothing that happens here. Looks great, but nothing happens. It was mid. Then we get to me the best backup story, which is Jimmy Con Carnage, the Jimmy Olsen Carnage backup story, where Jimmy Olsen is taking pics for J. Jonah Jameson, and he's trying to find Spider-Man, and he thinks he finds Spider-Man, but he finds Carnage, and he immediately gets disemboweled when he finds Carnage. He's like, oh boy, you disemboweled the wrong guy. And he goes to hit his signal watch, and it has a software update. And he's like, oh no. And then J. Jonah Jameson uses the pictures provided by Jimmy to say, this is Spider-Man. Look how evil he is. He killed Jimmy Olsen. They do like a little sort of obituary of Jimmy Olsen. And JJ's like, Jimmy Olsen is the best in the world. He finally got proof that Spider-Man's evil. It was so good. It was great. It was really fun. I enjoyed that one a lot. That was my favorite of the backup stories, was the Jimmy Olsen Carnage one. It's very fun, and Matt Fraction did a great job with that. Of course, Steve Lieber did incredible as well. Now, the Jonathan Kent and Ben Parker story, The Bridge, this is where one time Uncle Ben, when in his younger days, was like on a trip, and he ended up going through Kansas, and he ran to John Kent, and they saved some people during a storm, and it's nothing. It's like a nothingness thing. It's like, yeah, I know John Kent and Ben Parker were good people, but this doesn't, like, there's nothing to it. And I like Jeff Lemire, and Rafa Sandoval was a great artist, but there's just nothing here. This is one where this totally could have done without this one. Could have cut this to add more for the rest of the stories, but instead you get this kind of nothing story. It's like, oh yeah, they're good people. I get it. There wasn't really anything else to happen. Then we get the Daily Planet Daily Bugle story, which is J. Jonah Jameson and Lois Lane are arguing on TV. This is from Greg Rucka and Nicole Scott, and this is one where, like, on paper, I like seeing, I like the idea of Lois Lane and JJ arguing and seeing they're different, because JJ's like, you guys should suck off Superman. You're his biggest cheerleader. And Lois Lane's like, well, you're lying about Spider-Man. But they don't really get into the weeds of it. They don't really have like a big argument. It's like it's a whole lot of nothing with this story, where, like, nothing is accomplished, nothing's really said, nothing happens. It's like, I like the idea of it, but nothing happened. It either needed more time to flesh out, or you should have just cut it. I think they personally should have just cut it. I like the idea of it, but Greg Rucka didn't really do anything here. He accomplished nothing with this story. It's like, man, you really could have had Lois Lane hammering him, being like, why are you constantly lying about Spider-Man? Like, going more. Instead, she, like, kind of brings up the topic, and then JJ says some bullshit, and then they're like, okay, and that's it. And it wasn't very good. This one's like, we could have done without. If you would have cut this and the John Kent Ben Parker story, then you could have, had these other ones go longer and actually be, more fleshed out stories. And then we get the Power Girl and the Punisher blind date. This I was very surprised I liked, because Gail Simone, once upon a time, I liked her writing, but I feel like as of late she fell off hard, and I feel like she hasn't been too good. But with this was good. This was fun, and the Belina Ortega art was good. It matched the story. When this was announced, I was like, Power Girl, Punisher, what are we doing here? So Power Girl's going on a blind date. She was set up on a blind date. It's with Paul. I have no idea why they threw Paul in here, but that was interesting. And they're having it at one of those supervillain hangouts. So Punisher's there undercover as the bouncer, and he's getting ready to shoot up the place, but now there's two innocent people here, and he's like, oh no. So he gets in there and he tells Paul, he's like, take your date out of there. He doesn't know Power Girl's Power Girl, and Power Girl immediately disarms Punisher, and she's like, you're not going to shoot everyone up in here. And then Punisher's like, I'm not trying to murder your date. I'm here for all these other guys. So then Punisher and Power Girl team up, and they beat up a bunch of supervillains, and it's fun. And then they end up connecting at the end, and then it seems they go and bang. So it's like, all right, it's a fun little story. I had no problems with it. It was a fun little thing. It's weird that that's the team up we got, but the art was good. The story was fun. I enjoyed it. So overall, I would say this was a good crossover. I liked it. I think this was probably better than both of the Batman Deadpool crossovers. Although the second one from DC was pretty good. That Grant Morrison story was good. But I think overall, as in including all the backups and everything, I think this one was probably better than that one. Hopefully Marvel brings their A game for their side of it. But if you read this, I want to hear from you in the comments below. What did you think? I really want to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will see y'all later.
Hey, skinny boy, saucy boy, I be running to the bank. Yeah, you know I hit the gas in the whip full tank. Riding past the ocean while I'm listening to Frank.